Hey guys, welcome back to History with Mrs. Lee. Today we are going to look at the compromises that occurred prior to the Civil War. Please remember that the phrase prior to means before. All right, you guys have become experts with the Missouri Compromise. We're going all the way back to 1820. Now think about, we've gained lots of land after we purchased Louisiana Territory from France, and then we're also going to continue to gain land from other countries like England and Mexico in the next couple of years after this. Well, people started to get worried that as new states were coming in, we were not going to have a balance in Congress. Originally, we had 11 free states and 11 slave states, so we were really worried that as more territories become states, that balance is going to be shifted. So, Henry Clay, being the great compromiser, he comes up with the Missouri Compromise in 1820, and basically an imaginary line is drawn along the parallel 3630 north, the latitude line. And this says that any territories that become future states that are north of this line would automatically become free states, and any territories below this line that would become states in the future would become slave states. And ultimately, this is going to create a balance in Congress. Now, we always say that this is a Band-Aid. It's going to be a temporary fix. And we know that Band-Aids, they don't last forever, and sometimes when you pull them off, they're going to hurt. So, as manifest destiny happens and we gain more and more land, we are going to get to the territory of California. In 1849, we have the California Gold Rush, as well as many Chinese who were coming to America and helping to build the railroads. So California quickly had over 60,000 people and therefore could apply to be a state. Well, there's a problem. The Missouri Compromise line goes straight through this territory. So what are we going to do? Are we going to make half of it free and half of it slave? That's not going to work. So with the Compromise of 1850, the North really wanted to have California come into the Union as a free state. So that occurs, and the North is appeased by that. But then, I need to actually add this in, the North also wanted to make sure that the slave trade was going to be banned, and remember, banned means to not allow, in Washington, D.C. So the North is very happy about this. But John C. Calhoun from South Carolina starts to get very upset. He's like, how dare you do this? You are throwing off the balance of Congress. And you know what? Maybe South Carolina and other southern states, maybe we're going to secede. So Henry Clay says, just wait a minute, John. Let's go ahead and give you something that you want. And so the South is appeased by the Fugitive Slave Act. The Fugitive Slave Act means that any slaves who go up north to freedom and are found, they would automatically need to be returned to the South. Now, this is not only dangerous for those fugitives, those runaway slaves, it's also going to be dangerous for any free men or women who were living in the North. Maybe you were an African American man who grew up in Philadelphia and you had lived your entire life as a free person in Philadelphia. But if some white man came up to Philadelphia and says, I think that you're a runaway slave, he could take you before a judge, and the judge would be paid $5 to say that you truly were a free man, or the judge would be paid $10 to say, oh yeah, I think you might actually be a runaway slave, you need to go back down to the South. And most of the time, a lot of the judges would take the money and have free men who had spent their entire lives free now going into the South becoming slaves. Now this appeased the South, but it definitely angered the North. So Compromise of 1850 is kind of like another Band-Aid. It's going to just keep everybody together, but only for a little bit longer. 4 more years pass, and we have the territories of Kansas and Nebraska from that Louisiana territory as more and more people start heading west on that transcontinental railroad. Well, they're technically north of the Missouri Compromise line, so you would think that these territories are going to automatically become free states. But John C. Calhoun and other Southerners, actually John C. Calhoun was passed away, but other Southerners at this time, they were very upset that California had become a free state. And so they threatened again, like, if you guys don't take care of this, we could possibly secede. So this is where we are going to get Stephen Douglas. He's a congressman who will eventually run against Abraham Lincoln as president in 1860. And Stephen Douglas says, why don't we do this? Why don't we let Kansas and Nebraska go ahead and use popular sovereignty? Let's let the people who live there vote to decide if they want to be slave states or free states, and let's keep everybody happy and just let them decide. All right, that seems like it's going to be okay, but Northerners are very upset because these should have been free states, and now this is opening up the opportunity for slavery in the North. Southerners, on the other hand, jump on this as an opportunity to gain more slave states. And so 1,700 men from Missouri, the neighbor to Kansas, they come over to Kansas and they illegally vote in the election, and they decide that Kansas, even though most of the people living there wanted it as a free state, they changed the vote so that it is now going to become a slave state. They are called border ruffians, and a ruffian is going to be somebody who roughs you up. Kansas is going to be called Bleeding Kansas because so many people are threatened or killed or attacked about whether or not their state should be free or slave. Now, it wasn't just Southerners coming and doing this, but also Northerners, abolitionist extremists like John Brown. He will come to Kansas and participate in Bleeding Kansas, trying to encourage people to make it free. Now, John Brown's story is not over just yet, so come back and see me later on next week so we can find out his ending to his story.